Do not go into the cave. I know it is dark, the wind is cutting through your clothes, and that black hole in the limestone looks like the only roof for 50 kilometers. But there are fresh tracks at the entrance. They are wider than your hand, and whatever made them has been using your brilliant survival plan as its bedroom. You have one job: keep a 37-degree body alive until sunrise. The temperature is falling, the light is almost gone, and somewhere beyond the grass a cave lion has just lifted its head. So yes, we are going to meet the monsters. But the animal most likely to kill you tonight does not have teeth. Welcome to Western Europe, roughly 40,000 years ago, during the last glacial period. Not a fantasy mash-up. One place, one night, and only animals that could genuinely have shared this world. Cave lion, cave hyena, cave bear, wolf, reindeer, mammoth, and 2 different kinds of human. That means the dire wolf is out. It lived in the Americas. The giant short-faced bear is out too. Also American. Ice Age documentaries love putting every famous creature into the same snowy car park, but nature did not organize its cast for our convenience. Your equipment is whatever ordinary clothing you are wearing right now. Your pockets are empty. No lighter, no knife, no sleeping bag, no phone, and no conveniently abandoned pile of dry firewood with a little sign saying, "Protagonist." You arrive shortly before sunset on a bitter, windy night. We are setting the weather dial to around -15 degrees Celsius as a plausible cold snap, not pretending that was the average temperature of every Ice Age Tuesday. And there is our first correction. The Ice Age was not one endless blizzard with Europe buried under a white slab. North of you, huge ice sheets exist, but much of the land south of them is cold, dry steppe tundra. Grass, herbs, low scrub, patches of woodland, exposed rock, and more large herbivores than the word tundra makes you picture. In the distance, mammoths move like walking hills. Reindeer pick through the hard grass. Horses turn their backs to the wind. The sky is enormous. The landscape is not dead. It is productive, crowded, and completely uninterested in keeping you comfortable. You can breathe the air. You can drink the water if you find it. Nothing here is chemically incompatible with your body. That is good news. The bad news is your body was delivered without the technology package that allowed people to live here. The clock begins with the wind. Warmth leaves you in several ways: radiation into the colder world, conduction into whatever you touch, evaporation from moisture, and convection as moving air strips away the thin warm layer around your skin. Tonight, the wind is doing the stealing fast. Your hands close into fists. Your shoulders rise. Blood vessels near the skin tighten, protecting the warm core by sacrificing the edges. Fingers become awkward. Your jaw starts to chatter. Shivering is not your body failing. It is your muscles burning fuel to make heat, for now the alarm system is working. The phrase, "you have this many minutes," would be wonderfully dramatic and completely dishonest. Cooling rate changes with clothing, wind, moisture, fatigue, body size, food, movement, and shelter. A wet person in wind is not the same problem as a dry person behind rock, so there is no magic countdown on screen. There is a budget, and every bad choice spends it. Your first decision is not fire, it is shelter. Fire is glamorous. Shelter is the reason a small flame has any chance of helping. You scan the steppe and find 3 options: a shallow rock overhang, a stand of scrub in a low hollow, and that deep cave with the hand-sized tracks. The cave wins every movie. It has walls, a roof, and no wind. It also has a smell: damp fur, old dung, and something sweetly rotten. Near the mouth, stones have been pushed aside. Deeper in, the floor has a smooth hollow pressed into it. This is the point where your modern brain says, "Excellent, a prehistoric mattress." Your prehistoric neighbor would say, "That is a bed." Beds have owners. The owner may be a cave bear. And before we turn it into a boss battle, The honest part. Most cave bear populations we have tested were not giant meat-addicted hunters. Their teeth, micro-wear, and chemistry often point to heavy reliance on plants. Some populations and seasons were more flexible, even omnivorous. There was no single cave bear menu across a continent and thousands of years. That does not make climbing over a sleeping bear sensible. A huge defensive animal does not need to want to eat you in order to remove you from the census. Real cave bear remains accumulate in caves partly because bears used them for winter dormancy, and some died there. Humans and bears often use the same shelters at different times. The important phrase is different times. If the hollow is fresh, the tracks are sharp, or warm breath is moving somewhere beyond the darkness, you back away. Quietly. The cave bear is not hunting you. You are attempting to break into its house while it is asleep, which is somehow worse because now the entire disaster is your fault. But there is another kind of occupied cave. At the entrance, you notice splintered bone. Not one clean skeleton, but fragments. Horse, reindeer, perhaps woolly rhinoceros, carried in and cracked. This is not a bear bedroom. This is a cave hyena den. Cave hyenas were close relatives of spotted hyenas, powerfully built members of Europe's predator guild. Their dens can hold enormous collections of bone. That tells us they transported and consumed carcasses there. It does not let us label every bone hunted rather than scavenged, because fossil crime scenes rarely come with security footage. It does tell you the cave has a landlord with jaws designed to open what other animals leave closed. And unlike the bear, the landlord may return with friends. You do not need a cinematic circle of 7 hyenas executing a perfect human attack plan. A single large carnivore investigating its den is enough to ruin the evening. So the deep cave is rejected. This feels like losing your best shelter, but it is actually your first correct Ice Age decision. Read the ground before entering the dark. You choose the shallow overhang. It blocks the worst of the wind, gives you rock at your back, and is too exposed and cramped to look like a major den. You check it anyway. No fresh dung, no recent bones, no deep bedding, no tracks leading inside. Not safe. Safer. In this video, that difference is your entire career. Now you need to stop the ground from drinking your warmth. Frozen soil is a giant heat sink. Sit directly on it, and conduction quietly drains you from below while the wind works from the side. You gather dry grass, brush, and small branches, building a mattress thicker than feels reasonable. Then you add more. The same material becomes a low windbreak across the open side of the overhang. It is ugly. The naturalist host's architectural career will not survive the reviews, but survival shelters are not judged by curb appeal. They are judged by whether the air next to your skin stays still. You tuck your knees toward your chest and protect the places that lose heat quickly. You keep clothing dry. You do not sweat yourself wet by sprinting randomly across the step. Movement makes heat, but hard exercise also burns limited energy and can soak your base layers. The goal is warm, not heroic. Now, fire. Human beings at this time were not waiting for lightning like confused chimpanzees. Fire had been a maintainable technology in Europe for hundreds of thousands of years. Neanderthals and modern humans managed hearths, transported fire, selected fuels, and used heat as part of an entire technical system. That sentence is about them. It is not automatically about you. Making a flame with no prepared kit is a craft. You need dry tinder, suitable wood, a method that produces a hot spark or ember, and the skill to turn that tiny success into a stable fire without smothering it. Smashing 2 random rocks together is not a cheat code. Rubbing damp sticks for 30 seconds and looking inspirational is not a method. You search under the overhang for dry fibers. You split dead twigs to reach a drier center. Perhaps you find flint and iron-rich stone. Perhaps you know exactly what to do. Most viewers do not. Be honest, when was the last time you made fire outdoors without a match, lighter, or ferro rod? If the answer is never, tonight is a rude place to take the course. You strike. A spark appears and dies. Another lands and leaves a pinprick of smoke. Your fingers are becoming less precise, so every failed attempt makes the next attempt harder. This is the cold's nastiest trick. It damages the hands and judgment required to solve the cold. Let us give you one piece of luck, because otherwise this becomes a very short verdict. A glowing ember catches. You cup it from the wind, feed it the finest fibers, and breathe gently until orange crawls through the bundle. A flame no bigger than a candle stands up. You do not celebrate. You feed it pencil-thin twigs, then thicker fuel, and build a small controlled hearth against a rock that reflects heat into the shelter. Too much smoke under a low roof is another way to lose, so the fire sits near the open edge with ventilation. Fire is not a force field, it is one tool in a system. The warm circle expands. Your shivering eases. Hands begin to hurt as they rewarm. Beyond the light, the steppe has become black glass. Then something moves. Low, quiet, tawny against the grass. A cave lion. It is a real lion species, not merely a modern African lion wearing a fur coat, and its range once stretched across northern Eurasia and into parts of North America. In Western Europe, the chemistry inside fossil bone gives us a surprisingly detailed menu. Some individuals focused on reindeer, others took young cave bears. Their diets did not simply overlap with the cave hyenas beside them. Notice what that evidence does not say. It does not say cave lions spent every night hunting people. Humans and lions certainly encountered one another. Humans even made astonishing lion images and sometimes processed lion bodies. But a fossil food web is not permission to write a guaranteed attack scene. The lion may be curious about the smoke. It may be traveling. It may have smelled you. It may have smelled reindeer and barely care that the strange bearded doodle beside the fire exists. You cannot ask. So you do the least cinematic thing possible. You stay near the shelter, keep the fire alive, avoid running, make yourself visible, and give the animal space. Running across open ground would turn uncertainty into movement, and movement is interesting to cats. For several seconds, two pairs of eyes exist at the edge of the light. Then they lower and disappear. Did the fire save you? Perhaps it contributed. Did the lion decide you were dangerous? Perhaps. Did it simply have something better to do? Also, perhaps. Honesty is less satisfying than a boss fight, but it keeps us from inventing animal behavior for applause. The night is not finished. Fuel burns faster than you expect. Every trip beyond the windbreak costs heat and leaves the shelter unattended. You drag back dead wood in short runs, checking the darkness before you bend down. A hyena whoops somewhere far away, but distance at night is difficult to judge. At midnight, exhaustion becomes the new threat. Sleep would reduce movement and let the fire fail. Staying awake spends energy. Alone, you have no one to collect fuel, no one to watch the dark, no one to notice when your thinking begins to slide. And it will slide. Hypothermia is not simply feeling very cold. Clinically, it begins when core temperature falls below 35 degrees Celsius. As cooling deepens, the nervous system loses performance. Fine movement goes first. Speech can become clumsy. Decisions become strange. Coordination deteriorates. The most dangerous moment is when the cold person becomes a bad judge of how cold they are. The solution must now be invented by the part of the body being disabled by the problem. You may decide the fire is probably fine. You may stop gathering fuel. You may leave the windbreak for a route that feels shorter but is not. Shivering is buying heat with energy. If a severely cold person stops shivering, that is not peaceful improvement. It can mean the body is losing the ability to defend its temperature. The warm core on our little diagram is shrinking, and everything outside it is being treated as optional. This is why the lion is not the central villain. The lion announces itself with eyes. The hyena announces itself with sound. The bear leaves tracks and a bed. Cold takes away the detective while the detective is still working the case. Your small fire dips. You reach for a branch and miss it. That is the scariest image in the video. Not jaws, just a hand that no longer lands where the brain aimed it. Now cut away from you and look 3 kilometers east. There is another fire. Around it sits a Paleolithic group, and suddenly the whole survival question changes. They did not arrive at sunset in random clothes. Hides were scraped, softened, and shaped before winter. Bone awls could pierce fitted garments long before eyed needles became common in Europe. By roughly 26,000 years ago, eyed needles appear in the European record too, making finer sewing more efficient. Layered fitted clothing traps air and blocks wind far better than a loose skin thrown over the shoulders. Their fire did not begin as tonight's improvisation. Embers could be conserved or transported. Fuel was gathered before dark. The hearth sits where smoke can escape and heat can reflect. Dry tinder exists because someone prepared it when their hands still worked. The shelter is chosen by memory. Someone knows which overhang floods, which cave bears use, where hyenas den, where wood remains dry, and which valley turns the wind into a blade. That knowledge is not written in DNA. It is taught. Most importantly, they are not alone. One person tends the hearth, another repairs clothing. Someone sleeps, someone watches. A child learns by seeing the same decisions repeated until they become ordinary. We like the story that humans conquered the Ice Age because we were tougher than the animals. Look at us. No fur, no claws, mediocre night vision, and feet that become a customer service complaint after 10 minutes on cold stone. The individual human is not the impressive unit. The impressive unit is the network. Skin turned into clothing, stone turned into tools, landscape turned into memory, flame turned into a hearth, and experience moved from one mind into another. Culture is portable insulation for the brain. Back in your shelter, the eastern sky begins to pale. If the fire caught, the windbreak held, your clothes stayed dry, you avoided the occupied caves, and luck kept the large carnivores uninterested, you may see sunrise. This is possible. People survive cold nights. We are not declaring a magical instant death the moment the temperature drops. But if you were dropped here alone, in ordinary indoor clothing, without tools or practiced fire skill, the honest verdict is ugly. Your chance depends heavily on finding natural shelter and usable dry material before your hands and judgment degrade. One wrong cave, one wet crossing, one sweat-soaked sprint, one failed ember, and the heat budget does not recover. So could you survive one night in the Ice Age? Technically, yes. Reliably, no. Not as a solo modern tourist with empty pockets. The surprise is that an Ice Age person is not a primitive version of you. In this world, you are the primitive one. They carry technologies, habits, and shared knowledge tuned to the landscape. You carry a very confident opinion about rubbing sticks together. And the famous monsters. The cave bear was often eating plants. The cave lion was usually pursuing the prey its chemistry reveals. The hyena den proves consumption, not a screenplay. They are dangerous because they are large, wild animals, not because prehistory assigned them the role of villain. The thing trying to kill you every second was the space between your skin and the weather. The thing that saved actual people was the space between one person and the next. If you made it this far, welcome to Tooth and Claw Arena. Every week we take one animal argument, one impossible survival question, or one monster from the past and run it all the way to the honest answer, including the part the dramatic documentaries usually skip. If you would have walked straight into that cave before checking the tracks, type cave in the comments and confess. I know you saw a roof. The bear saw a front door. Subscribe, because next time we are taking the least intimidating animal in your kitchen and following its family tree backward until it becomes a nightmare. Your chicken is not descended from the dinosaurs in the way people casually say it. It is one. Until then, keep the fire small, keep the bedding thick, and never trust a prehistoric mattress.